Good day. I'm here today with my guest, Giannino, candidate for state rep, Chelsea Revere, Saugus. We're here with Spotlight on Chelsea. I'm your host, Leo Robinson, and welcome to Chelsea. I see that you've been pretty much doing a lot of campaigning here in the city. I'd like to thank you for getting to know the people of Chelsea. And being that we've been in such with this pandemic, how is this phase different than the similar outbreaks that we've had this year and even over the summer?
Well, Leo, thank you so much for having me. It's been great to get to know you and the residents of Chelsea over the past few months. We're in a different position now than we were when this started back in March. Mm-hmm. So when it happened in March, I think that there was a big scare. People didn't know what was happening. We didn't have the resources. There were shortages. People were looking for cleaning supplies and household items, and there was a big kind of shock. Mm-hmm. I think we're in a different situation now because we are more prepared. Mm-hmm. Cities and towns have been provided more resources. We have hand sanitizer, masks, and the supplies that our first responders need to get us through this. So I think that we are in a better situation in terms of our preparedness. However, the situation regarding the severity of the issue has not changed. Mm-hmm. We're seeing another spike. Revere is still in a red zone. Over the weekend, we had over 50 cases in one day, mm-hmm. and that's incredibly concerning. Yeah. So I think it's just important that, although several months have passed and things are starting to return to what feels a little more normal, that we still stay on top of it, that mm-hmm. we're still practicing social distancing and sanitizing and, being respectful of each other.
Yeah, and I think we can't really relax and feel that we can run out and do all the things that we used to do by going to the restaurants, going to the bar and meeting friends. Mm-hmm. It's important that we wear masks and we do social distancing. And being that it's been a campaign, and you can't campaign how we normally do by door to door and whatnot. The necessity and the opportunity to try new methods on the ballot access with expanding early voting and mail-in voting. What do you see as the pros and cons of these expanded methods?
So campaigning during COVID is an entire new type of campaigning. I think it's pushed a lot of people to focus on social media more. It's put a focus on just really becoming creative and being able to access your residents and constituents without, putting them in jeopardy. So mm-hmm. using Zoom, using different things like that. So that's been one challenge that we've overcame in the past few months. But in terms of the ballot and the different options for voting, some of the pros are it's expanded its reach so much. Mm-hmm. You look on TV and there are lines outside of polls. So mm-hmm. people are coming out. It's a presidential election, so of course we're going to have a better turnout. Mm-hmm. But people are really stepping up and coming out to vote. I think that some of the younger generations like the mail-in voting. They like mm-hmm. that it's easier. They can just do it if they go back to school or, are working. It's more accessible for them. They don't have to remember that one day. Mm-hmm. But of course, when there are pros, there are cons. Yeah. So I think some of the cons that we've seen to these options are, trust issues. People are concerned.
Yes.
People genuinely like the feeling of going into a ballot box, casting their vote, and giving it to a person. Mm-hmm. I know we spoke in the city council in Revere about concerns that when you do early voting, you're signing an envelope, you're sealing it, mm-hmm. so there is that possibility that, someone can open it when it's put in and mm-hmm. see your name, and that's a trust issue. People are concerned about that. Mm-hmm. Then you see issues like what happened in Boston. Mm-hmm. So I think that this is a trial period for all of us, mm-hmm. and I think that over the years, hopefully we can fine-tune it and, focus more on the pros than some of the cons to this.
Good. One of our next major issues is the housing issue when the eviction moratorium is going to be over. Do you foresee any major upticks in evictions?
So I'm hoping by the time that the moratorium is over, that people will be slowly returning to work and resuming their regular lives. So I think that they'll be in a better position than we were back in March when everything happened so suddenly. But I think it's important that when we talk about this, it's important to think of all sides of the issue. So there are, of course, the families and the people that are renters that we want to make sure have roofs over their head and that we're deeply concerned about. But the flip side of this also is, people that are retired, for example, and maybe rent out one bedroom in their basement. They're in situations where they're putting another mortgage on their home because if their tenants can't pay the rent, they can't pay their mortgage. So it's a very complex issue, and it's so important to look at all of the different people that are affected by it. So I'm hoping that, as people return to work and as life sort of normalizes a little bit, that it will calm, but it's something we need to keep an eye on, and we need to make sure that the state's helping, to fund, to ensure that people have that security and have a roof over their head.
Yeah, well, the state had put up $171 million for the RAF program. I had the opportunity to speak to some of the larger landlords here who do not want to lose their tenants, but also they need to be able to survive. The city has put up money for rental assistance up to $4,000. Also, the city's going to be coming up with a program to help homeowners up to 1 to 4 units, to make sure that, we have an equal balance and that we don't have a mass evictions with people going on the street. They also put in place an attorney to help deal with some of the eviction or advocate for people in the community. And being that we don't see any stimulus package that's coming from the federal government, how do you see the state government stepping in to help, with the economy and with unemployment?
So I think that the governor has done a really good job in terms of stepping up to the plate and helping out our communities during this difficult time. And I'm very hopeful that when the legislature returns to its formal session in November, that we're going to continue to fund these different programs, and we're going to continue to fund and find resources for areas that we didn't need to before. Cities and towns are going to need more help with things like rental assistance, for PPE, for proper sanitation, and hand sanitizer and things for people. So I just think it's really important that once things start to normalize and formal session goes back in, I do have faith that the governor is going to continue to fund these programs, and I know our legislature is going to fight for it.
Yes. Being it's going to be your first term, representing, Chelsea, Revere, and Saugus, what goals have you mapped out for yourself to try to achieve in your first year in the legislation?
So something that I learned on my first year in the city council 10 years ago is sometimes in your first year it's important to learn, to know the issues, learn your communities, and learn about what's happening. So I intend on being a sponge and really taking it all in and really trying to become an expert on everything that I need to. Of course, I want to continue the fight for environmental justice that Rosalie Vincent has been working on. She's been an incredible advocate for Revere, Chelsea, and Saugus in terms of the environment. And as you know, that's a deep concern of mine that I want to continue to work on, as well as, looking at different things to help our communities inside of COVID, providing hazard pay to first responders and people that are on the front line working. As you know, when COVID happened, all other cities and towns had public transportation at less than 10%. Chelsea was over 50%.
Yeah.
We were working.
Yeah.
So we need to continue to make sure that we're supporting those workers and providing them with the pay that they deserve.
Well, I think you raise a very good point about being in your first year and listen, and know who the players are to be able to help you move your pieces of legislation through the legislature. Now, Tip O'Neill always said politics are local. I know we have a big presidential election, national election, and if you want to comment on how do you see that working, with the amount of people coming out?
Well, I think it's great from my perspective, to see so many people that are engaged. As an elected official, something that we always really fight for is to ensure that people are participating in government, that their voices are being heard. So earlier in the year, we were concerned about the census and getting people to complete the census. Now our focus is on getting out and voting. We need you to get out and vote. In terms of locally, I think that all of the focus right now is on what's happening nationally. I do agree that we need to really focus on some of the ballot questions. They're really important. When you talk about question number 1 and the right to repair, we think about all of the small businesses that have already been so impacted by COVID-19, and this could be detrimental to them. This would put hundreds of small auto body shops out of business. So I definitely support question 1, and I think that that's important. And I think it's just important that regardless of your opinion on the questions, that you take the time to read them and to understand them and to educate yourself on them. In terms of the presidential election, I think it's just so important that as Americans, we come together and realize that on Wednesday, the sun's going to rise and life will go on. And, being in politics, I've seen elections divide families, divide friends, divide communities. Revere, we've seen some very difficult elections where people don't even speak to each other anymore. And if there's one thing I can really talk to people about and hope that they take away from is that it's okay to have different opinions, but just remember at the end of the day, we all want the greater good, and we're all still Americans.
Yeah, I think that's always been an important issue, is that, you can debate the issue and disagree on the issue and kind of walk away and come back to fight another day, but not get to the point where I'm on one side of the issue, you're on the other side of the issue, and I'm never going to speak to you again, or I'm never going to support anything that you put forth that might be a benefit to the community, but I might not want to support it because you put it up.
Absolutely.
And I think all you're doing is cheating the people of the community who would benefit from the work that you're doing.
Absolutely.
And I know that you're on the ballot next week. Is there anything you want to say to your voters?
Absolutely. So I first want to thank the city of Chelsea and the residents of Chelsea, Revere, and Saugus for their support in the primary. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude by your support and confidence. And I just want you to know that I look forward to working really hard for you over, the next term. It's very important to get out and vote. I would ask for your vote on the general election. I'm excited. It'll be the first time I'll ever see my name on the ballot with the president, which is a little overwhelming. But I'm here. I look forward to meeting people, talking to people, seeing what's affecting you, and working really hard for you. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming in and being my guest here today on Spotlight on Chelsea. I'm your host, Leo Robinson. I just want to say, good luck. I've seen you out there campaigning. I think you've done very well, and I think you're going to serve my community and the other communities as a big, strong voice for the people of those communities. And once again, thank you, and thank Ricky and Paula here at Chelsea Community Cable.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you so much, Leo.